look at this. Do you see it there? It's a certified banger waiting to happen
Ooh,
again. It's
this is going to be
Axer
great.
Typo. So Twitch heads rejoice because we've got Axer Typo against another strong Canadian expert player, Jason Lee. I don't know about you, Emmett, but I count myself as an Axer Typo head, Axer Typo freak,
I would
whatever you
also
want to
count
call it.
myself as an actor typo head. I Twitch Prime to him last month for the first time, so I
Nice.
think that I get my seal there. Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, Jason immediately playing WoW. That seems fine to me, Emmett, with those
yeah,
two
looks good.
W's. So yeah, let's see. I'm gonna
And you'll
do
notice he against Josh even he opens vertically. So against most people, opening vertically may be enough to rattle them, but Josh Sokol is well known for opening vertically as often as possible. So I don't think this little intimidation tactic is going to work out here.
the, the debate. Where do you stand on that, Emmett? The raging debate that is also kind of a nothing burger of
Right.
verdict going on.
For months, for years even, I was virulently against the vertical open. I always opened horizontally, and then as I
Wow.
started going back to in-person tournaments over the past year or so, I found myself loving the vertical open. So I'm firmly on the verti side of it at this point.
Wow,
Yeah.
deeply disturbing and disappointing, but we'll let you continue to stay in the booth. Now, obviously,
Thank you.
it's fun to overreact. It's of course, it's whatever you want to do. It shouldn't really affect too much, but if you like the aesthetics of it and if maybe somebody actually gets trolled by that from time to time, there
Yeah.
you go. You get your equity from that alone. So,
It's great. No,
um
I find it fun. Yeah.
so what do you folks in the chat think about who here is Verdi or die in the chat? Any of you guys out there, Verdi and proud, let us know in the chat because good comment from King of Lettuce who says opening vertically must be best since Nigel does it. That's a pretty compelling
True.
argument. But Nigel also wears a fanny pack, so you got to be careful.
Yeah.
So
And we've got
anyway,
Ode coming down, which looks
yep,
like
nice
to
play.
me to be the top equity play here. So solid from Josh as expected.
Yeah, it's a good play for sure. 27 points with all those parallels. The W is definitely a letter that it scores well, 4 point tile, a lot of two-letter words that you can make, but at the same time, when you place that W onto the board, you can often expect it to get reparalleled. So you give back
Mhm.
some of those points that you score initially. But I don't think Jason's really worried about that. He was happy to play WoW just because those W's really get in the way of his quest to get that first bingo down. And Jason's getting a little bit closer. Few too many consonants for him on this
For
rack, Emmett.
sure. Yeah, so Will, I've also got a question for you about that last play from Josh. As you probably notice, Ode could have gone on either side of WoW. So when you have a play that could go on either side of an existing spot on the board, what goes through your head when deciding which where to put it?
That's an awesome point. You could play it in either spot, and somebody like Josh is for sure going to be looking at those positionings and trying to figure out what do I like better between those. I think in general, it feels to me that Josh likely was thinking that WO on the right side of WoW is a little bit tougher to hook than the OW if you were to place it on the left
Yep.
side. There are so many consonants. For example, a bingo ending in D or R would play hooking Dow or row.
Yep.
Those would be trickier to fit on the board after ode in this positioning. So that's a really good. I probably was not going to think to mention that, Emmett. So that's a really, really good nuance to call out. So
Thank
yeah,
you. Thank you.
has to be intentional by Josh. Somebody like Josh is seeing all of that stuff really
Yeah.
fast. I'm always impressed with his ability to do that. I should
Yeah.
point out that Jason Lee as well is very, very good with board control and things like that. I have a terrible record against Jason
Wow.
Lee. I think it's something like my record against Jason is like 2 and 10 or something like that. So two players that these two players both give me a really hard time playing them because they're so attuned to these positional nuances, as you indicate.
And as we're talking about that, Jason plays again the top equity play in the position, which is Cole there for an unassuming 11 points. You know, he had plays hooking WO with the K for more than that, but he goes with this, and it turns out to be the right move. So it's really strong play from both our experts here as the game gets started.
Yeah, I think the thing that I like most about Cole is that it's a good way to set up Jason's S without giving Josh any real lucrative counterplay for that. So it's going to be tricky for Josh to address that S hook without giving something nice back to Jason in his own right. So
Right.
tough move here for Josh.
You know, so we
Those two
interesting though,
Fs.
we talked about the hooks that Josh was creating on the WO, but we didn't talk about the hook that Josh was creating with the play of ode itself, where you can actually stick another O in front of that, which is something that it looks like Josh has lined up on his rack. So we'll see if he's going to play ood and of or ood and off or something like that, right there on the top of ode. But it seems like that's a really nice opportunity that he's not going to go let past him right
Yeah,
here.
that is a great idea. That is actually an excellent way to block the S hook on Cole as well, to play there. We had a good question in the chat. Sometimes, oh, interesting choice. He's played
Very,
oof
very
instead.
interesting. That's
Um,
I don't know how I feel about that one. I think it's a pretty big point sacrifice
it is.
for
So
not a large difference in equity.
he must really like that positioning. And oh, a good point is that maybe he doesn't want to allow the either the T hook of oft, but probably more likely the A hook of offa is probably why he wouldn't play OFF there. After a play like Cole, you can just know that Jason is keeping 5 good letters. Often an A will be in that mix. So you don't want to create the hook for OFFA in that spot. But Jason plays mend really
Very
fast. That looks
quickly.
pretty good too, Emmett.
Yeah, it looks great. These guys are both playing. I mean, I think Josh, just from a pure equity standpoint, that was the first mistake he made, and obviously it was a defensible play. And Jason comes right back with the top play in the position. So it's really been a
Jason
clean game so far from these two,
It's been a very tactical game too. We've seen there's
for
only
sure.
one word longer than 4 letters on the board here of ood. I'm gonna guess. I don't have a prediction up yet. At some point, we're gonna get those flowing in the chat. But I'm gonna guess that we will see a word longer than 5 letters hit the board in this game. Emmett, what do you think about that bold, courageous prediction
Yeah,
on
I look, I think that's a pretty radical, but I'm willing to agree with that assessment.
Thank
Especially
you.
given what we see here on Jason's rack, where he's close to some bingos through at least through an E, probably through a couple of other tiles that I'm not good enough to spot.
Yeah,
Um,
so at the very least, if Josh does not address that threat, incisor and mends, I should say, is a
yeah.
threat here. Of course, I think Josh is going to try his best to overlap in that spot, but it doesn't look like it's really easy for him to do. But I want to just quickly address the question from Trogdor Burns in the chat. What does top equity mean? And
I
the
have been
players are
saying that a
playing too
lot,
fast. Yeah, no, I do the same thing. It's a great question. I'm so glad it was asked as I am hits the board and Josh has actually managed to
to
block
play the
the
top equity
play of
play.
incisor in that spot, but it will still play with Rin hooking onto IN. I'm gonna
Got it.
just I don't know, Emmett, if you're following along with the game, but I just want to point out there is an absolutely ridiculous play that Best has just pointed out in the chat
Oh
there.
my God,
Ru-
radionics.
Insane.
That is
That's not a play
unbelievable.
that is a play that S is required. There is no word radionic,
Yeah.
only radionics. So that is an insane word that very few of us will know. Jason, I think, will play incisor. But let me see if I can get
And
this answer in before the
go
equity
for
of a
it.
move. The equity of a move is very simply the value of the points that it scores and the quality of the letters that you leave over for your next turn. Every group of letters in Scrabble, we assign a value to that. So, for example, the S is only worth 1 point, but its
Yeah,
equity value is so much higher
so
because it
much more.
allows you to play so many other plays you might not normally. So the S is actually, we estimated in general to be something in the range of like 6 to 8 points of equity because you are likely or to get very high scores on your next turn if you keep it.
Yep.
So equity is a rough measure of how good a play is, but it does not take into account any board specific considerations. So you always have to think when you see a high equity play, does this help me? Does this make a big spot for my opponent? What are the other considerations of this play? But it is a nice, simple measure of a play that's helpful to us. As you can see, Incisor does go down. I can't say I'm too disappointed to not see Radionics, Emmett.
No, for sure not. And to your point about radionics needing an S, the reason that's actually so significant in this situation is that a lot of the times when you see 9 letter words go down, it's because you've got a pluralization of an 8 letter word that the player would have studied. In this case, since that's only a 9 letter word with no 8 letter stem, that's not a word that the vast majority of Scrabble players are ever going to have studied. So that makes it a lot harder to hit. As Jason, it appears, seems to pull a
Yeah,
bingo, a
he's
clean seven
got
of Elitron onto his rack, right?
he does, and I'm pretty sure he you can see that Jason alphabetized his tiles. That is common practice among players at this level who may have
Yeah.
been practicing their words using computer tools that that arrange your letters in alphabetical order. So a lot of players like to arrange their letters in that same order
Yeah.
because it sort of triggers that pattern recognition from when you've seen it in the past. But I could see Jason almost spell out Elitron on his rack before
Yeah.
switching back over to alphabetize those letters. So I'm quite sure he sees it. I guess the question is, will
Will there be
Josh
a spot?
inadvertently, make a spot for him? It's
And I
definitely possible.
don't, but I'm looking at Josh's main couple of options here. I don't think he's going to end up opening that up for him. At least hopefully if you're Josh. And you're
Yeah.
probably going to see a play that definitely plays the T and the Z here from Josh, kind of undoubling those T's. And if he can, he's going to get rid of the U as well. Um,
Yeah, you know what he's doing. I know Josh very well. I've made a lot of content with Josh. He's thinking about playing Tuft under
that would be classic Josh.
the eye of Incisor to make a huge, huge spot for Zit. And if he were able to draw something reaching all the way across with that Z, he would score well over 100 points in that spot. So that's what he's thinking. Looking at his body language, he was shaking his head. I'm sure he's trying to assess, is this a play that I should make? Is this a content play? Emmett, do you
I
think
think
Josh would make a
I
content play in this scenario?
I a million percent think Josh is fighting the urge to make a content play right now. It happens to me all the time where I'll see a play that's really funny and also significantly worse than another play that I see, and really have to fight off those thoughts telling me to play the content play. So, but look, this play is arguably as good, but no, he's just gonna go with Futz
Okay. Yeah,
instead.
Futz, you can tell. Oh, this must have been so painful for Josh to not play Tuft
Yeah.
there. But a
Although,
good point by King of Lettuce that Tuft would have set up rottenly
right.
through that first tee. So maybe a little bit of a bullet dodge there for him by making that standard play as opposed to the fancy play. But as content, I mean, we love the content plays, Emmett.
Of
But
course we do.
these players are trying to win. So you got to balance that need for good content and to
Yep.
create good content with the need to try to win these games. So tough.
It is tough. And yeah, I don't know, but I mean, look, again, that's one of those situations where the content play isn't necessarily so bad,
It's not. Yeah.
which
It
is a
probably
happy accident
sims
when we can see that.
it
It
probably
probably does,
sims
yeah.
very well just because anytime you get that big Z play that goes all the way across, you're going to score massively. But of course, it's very polarizing, right? The outcomes
Yeah,
after a play like Tuft are either you regret doing a play like that very much, or you get that huge payoff and it works out huge. The
exactly.
outcomes after Futs are much smoother, right? There's going to be
Yeah,
a lot more bingos in that intermediate range, a lot more scoring plays in that 30 to 40 point range, as opposed to sometimes maybe you try to hit that setup a second time and don't score very many points, or you get that 100
right.
point massive payoff, which isn't actually that common. Getting the Z in that spot is more likely going to score 60 than it will score 100.
Yeah,
Um, so
because
yeah,
it's going to be, I mean, I can't name them all, but there's not that many five-letter words that end in a Z,
yeah.
especially
Holding
given what's already off the
CE,
board.
he would have held CEZ too. So that's not
Yeah,
really like that close to anything that hammers
no.
that spot with those letters. So I
And
think
maybe
Josh
he was
made the
just
right.
hoping for an A, but yeah, I think he did make the
True.
right call too, and especially because he didn't, give a bingo spot for Jason. Um, in hindsight,
So yeah, with no spot for Elytron, that nice. I think that means something like, like a hardened insect exoskeleton or something like that.
yeah,
So yeah, something like that. The definitions are
unbelievable.
yeah, there's a lot of cool ones there. But what I guess you guys in the chat are shouting out maybe just trebly through the B of I am. That looks pretty good to me, scoring decently
Looks good.
well. Leaves ON, which is a reasonably good combination. It's definitely worth noting that this is not the best board to get bingos down here. There's
Not
no
at
good
all.
S hook. Futs, of course, a word that does not, you can't just put an S on it. It should also, if you're watching along and you're curious, Futs does also, I think I've seen this on a board before. You can't put a Y at the end of that. If you're futzing
But it
around with
feels like you
something,
can.
it looks like it, right? I feel like that's got to be a word that somebody out there in Scrabble history has played, but Jason's not
Hmm.
going to try that. No way that either of these players, a word like futz, which you're going to see over and over again, if you play enough Scrabble, players at this level are going to know those hooks cold. Emmett, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%.
That's not coming down.
Yeah, so I mean, they're gonna have studied, first of all the four-letter words and all the five-letter words, but as well as saying, they're also going to have studied, presumably, those ways that you can extend the three-letter words to the four-letter words and the four-letter words to the five-letter words. So, it's at this point for players of this caliber, it's really all in their muscle memory, and they're not going to make kind of a sort of a low-level mistake like futzy. Um, but that is certainly something that you may expect to see on the board of a player who hasn't been playing for very long and has that intuitive
Or
feeling that it may be a word.
exactly. A player that's not been studying the dictionary could easily try that because it just looks and feels a lot like a word. And, the dictionary is kind of arbitrary that way. Who's to say that, that word might not someday be valid? I'm not sure I've said that. I don't think I've said if I'm futzing around with something that I myself am futzy. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, there's definitely other words with that TZY
Totally.
ending.
And especially lots of words where I think, if I'm not mistaken, futzy is Yiddish derived, I think. And there's tons of words that are also Yiddish derived that will take that Y at the end of it.
That's
So
true. Yeah,
we'll see.
there's a good Yiddish. I mean, there are some awesome Yiddish words that are playable in Scrabble.
Totally.
I mean, it's interesting. A lot of players are surprised when words that we borrow from other languages show up in the English language
Right.
dictionary. But I think most of the words that have origins from other languages, that are in our dictionary are there because we've basically co-opted them in English, and you can use them
100%.
in English speech, and everybody knows what you're talking about. So English is a very it's a hodgepodge language to begin with. We've borrowed so much from so many other
Yeah.
languages and areas, so it's not too surprising. So it looks like Jason is maybe not seeing trebly and is getting set to play, I guess, a somewhat archaic adverb of onset or one set or
Oh,
something
through
like
the sea, of
the
course.
C, which I think is, I mean, that's a solid play. If you don't see any better plays through the B, um, I don't know. I don't really quibble with this, except that if you see trebly, that definitely feels like the play here. So,
Yeah, but this is one of those tough middle game turns where if you don't see the star play, there's not going to be anything that really jumps out at you, and you have to kind of balance a lot of different considerations. So, at least for me, these types of turns are by far the hardest turns for me to make sense of, and probably the turns where I end up making the most and the largest mistakes. But of course, these players are going to be a lot more precise than I am at this point.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, don't don't give these players too much credit. It's not on them. It's more in the complexity of the position, right? You're absolutely
right.
right that these are plays that take a while. Jason has burnt a lot of clock on this move too. You can see the time difference widening every second into sort of a critical deficit for Jason.
Hmm.
25 minutes to play your full game. There's moves like this where, if, again, as you said, if you don't spot that top play, you could be sitting and thinking for really quite a long time. And
And
there's
he
the
was sitting
play.
there for 7.5 minutes, which is
Yeah,
kind of an unbelievable length of time. Um,
that's a long time. Yeah, and I'm sure part of it is just a sort of an unwillingness on Jason's part to believe that could this possibly be my best play that I have
right.
available here. So yeah, that's it's a good play, right? That's, I think I would say it's probably second best here behind
Yeah.
Trebly. But we'll see if we'll see
Oh,
what
the
sort
cue.
of, oh, there it is, the Q. The Q
Okay,
does
great to you.
play. The Q can be sort of slapped down on top of the I of incisor for a solid
True.
score. But yeah, that U is going to open up a few more possibilities for Jason here. So
Yeah.
also
And
worth noting, two A's for Jason. That's the first A's that we've seen since Futz. You could easily see an underlapping play under the Z there that scores pretty well. Sorry, Emmett, go ahead.
100%. Oh, I was just going to say on the time consideration, at least in some Scrabble circles, you have this idea that you'd like to have um, at least a third of your time left in the end game because that's the part of the game that's the most computationally complex and where you're going to have to do the most thinking. And Jason is if he wants to keep that in the cards, he's going to need to play the rest of this game very quickly if he wants to have like a full end game in which to do that. But I don't know. That's the advice that I follow. But Will, as a obviously a grandmaster player, what is your time breakdown in your usual games?
I'm just trying to get to the end of the game with a few minutes to puzzle out the end game and actually do some math, in the pre-end game and end
Yeah,
game. It's tough, right? Like, as you allude to, there are some turns in Scrabble where once you see, and to the question from the Atom in the
beautiful.
chat, is Cogent the type of play Josh would make? There you have your answer. And that is a really solid play from him here. But yeah, Scrabble, I just feel like there are some plays that are instant. When you see them, you're going to say, okay, this is my best play. But there are so many
Yep.
other plays where there's so many nuances to work through. And you can see your time. 25 minutes feels like a lot. It just evaporates so quickly sometimes. So,
And I think what's interesting about time use in our game is that, at least to me, there's kind of this bell curve of time use where really new players are going to go over a lot. Players who are low intermediates or intermediates are going to blitz out a lot of moves and miss a lot of moves. And then as you get up to these expert levels, players are going to go back to taking the majority of their time, except now they'll know how to control that. but just to maximize the thinking time. So it's kind of an interesting way that you see the use of time develop as players improve. As Josh has a pretty a nice pull and sets up Saggies on his rack. That's quite funny.
Thank you, Josh. He's a content creator at heart, folks. Just the way, Hikaru Nakamura calls himself a streamer first and a chess player second. Maybe Josh is feeling that as he puts Saggies up. But he shouldn't be too Sag because he's still very much in this game. He's got some good letters. He could, if he wants to. Both
And
players now
just
have
stick the
A's.
S.
Yeah, I mean, you could, on that turn of court for Jason, he could have been patient and just played AY and Za. And now the A's are just coming in
Yeah.
force. Wow, look at that rack there. So many A's now. But
And two
Josh,
Y's.
yeah. So Ayaya is the Babel Royale
Ay, ay,
players out
ay.
this is the
Exactly.
Scrabble acceptable spelling of that. I don't know if we're actually going to see that, but it does play alongside the D of ood if you really want to get rid of all that stuff. It's a little risky, but maybe we will
Very.
actually have an Ayaya sighting in a Scrabble game.
I wonder
That
if
would
we're
be
going to see Josh, if we're going to see Josh just come down here and drop the S at the end of incisors here, kind of make Jason make the next opening play and kind of make a waiting move while holding on to a lot of nice letters. So it's definitely something that he
very,
could think about.
very interesting call out there, Emmett. Just popping that S down. The only thing that if I'm Josh, the thing that I'm scared about with that play is that it gives Jason so much information that's going to
Information,
help him
exactly.
to guide his next plays. So you can see Jason has lined up Ayaya on his rack here, and he may be getting ready to play that in the spot that I mentioned. If Josh
Beautiful.
plays, if Josh plays incisors and
There's
sad,
no way
just
he plays it.
no way he plays that, right? That because just plopping that S down is like sign from Josh to Jason, hey, I've got another S a lot of the time, right? It's
Yeah.
not a lot. He might just be, he might be struggling with consonants, fishing for something else that doesn't require an S, but the odds are way higher after a play like that you've got a second S, and Jason cannot in good conscience play Ayaya there. So if you guys want to see Ayaya hit the board, you better be hoping that Josh does not play incisors and sad, even though it is a very
Yeah.
defensible play here. Probably
But
you're
there
hoping to see
is
Ag and Za here.
there what's interesting about this position though is that there is kind of a pretty and he plays it, of course he does.
There it is.
Is there's a defensible logic for Jason to think that Josh isn't playing an S, and that is that this board is at right now in its current state is terrible for an S. So Josh playing, and here goes AY, which we're playing quick as can be.
Yeah,
Um,
Jason
but
adjusted instantly there. Just saying, hell no, I'm not playing Ayaya. So I'm sorry to you all in the chat, but good, but sorry, Emmett, all you now.
yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, like, from Jason's perspective, it's definitely not guaranteed that Josh has another S, but this is a player who's played so many games. He's seen stuff like this so many times, and he's just going to know that it's going to be way safer to not put that massive hook there in the triple lane. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I'm seeing the something with the score looks a little weird. I'm not sure if our producer Josh, I know he's literally meeting like Kingston dignitaries and stuff like that.
yeah,
So if I have to go pop over and check what's going on with the score, I might do that in a minute, Emmett, and just leave you to commentate for a
sure.
sec.
We do have
So
though. I can confirm we've got 151 to 199. Jason in front right now.
yeah, that score is
So
right. I think this is not on our scorekeeper's end. I think this is a production issue. So I'm going to hop over and investigate this as Emmett. Just feel free
yeah, go
to
for it.
guide us through the action for a minute or two.
Sure. So Josh is going to go play AG right there, which is a reasonably good play. It's definitely in his top two or three plays. I only am not sure if it's better than just putting the Z or just putting the G down there by itself, given that putting the G down there by itself is going to bingo probably at least a bit more than putting the AG down there, but it's really, really close. And of course, that kind of pays out for Josh as he hits the blank. Um, and now we've got another one of these hard turns for Jason, where he already has Yuan set up on his rack, which is going to be one of those fours that Scrabble players at this level are just going to immediately see. But we also have that spot in the top right corner that hasn't been hit yet through the B, where you can see you've got Jason could potentially play something like usably up in that spot. If he does, Josh is going to bingo on the next turn. Yeah, exactly. The Adam. Josh has the tidiest rack. He has a lot of other stuff. He has deities. He has um, Josh is probably not going to have trouble bingoing on this next turn. We'll only see how long it takes for him to decide which one is his best bingo. Wow. Okay. So Jason is going to burn his S there and play Lays, which is a really interesting play that is almost not even in the top 10 of his equity plays here, what I'm seeing. But what it does do is it makes bingoing a lot harder, given that he knows that Josh is probably still holding on to an S, so he's probably close. So it's not the worst play. He is holding on to that U, and there he draws the blank. So Josh is going to be pretty disappointed about that, I think. Um, and
Yeah,
we'll see what he
seeing
can come
that.
up with here.
I'm back and I'm seeing that play and definitely agreeing with that analysis. And that is a very Jason esque play.
Yeah.
Josh is going rated R on us, getting some nudities on the board. Nudities
Yep.
and Scrabble players, something we love to see paired up,
Of
and
course.
very nice. Um, so that's a good play. He's been able to sort of get that bingo on the board. But as you alluded to, Emmett, that blank for
Hmm.
Jason, he's not going to be too. It's definitely a little worrisome, but Josh only up narrowly with a lot of nice tiles on Jason's rack to respond.
And I mean, Jason can really. He's just gonna catch the X here for 30 something, and then leave himself a very bingo prone rack on the next turn. So he's kind of in a good position. Josh is quite lucky actually, given that he created this huge spot there next to the E and nudities that Jason isn't holding on to an I. Um,
Good point.
yeah. Oh, as
Yeah.
Josh himself actually pulls just a clean seven straight out of the bag.
Prevail.
Um,
Yeah.
I
Um,
don't think it's going to go down, but we'll see.
Yeah. The only issue though, you can see that of course that X spot alongside the E of nudities would be ideal with XI going down. If you're, a budding Scrabble player, some of those short words containing the X, the Z, the J, those are going to be the first ones you learn. So good little small word list if you're watching along and thinking how can I start on the path to being a better player, words like xi are critical to learn. Without that
Hmm.
though, there's the A of lays where it looks like
Exactly.
Jason is considering playing racks. Scary thing about that is it creates a really big e hook for axe, and Josh has one here.
And
So
I mean, if Rax goes down, he can play something. Oh my God! Wow, Prevail does parallel nudities. That's incredible. So Josh is obviously going to see that, but if he didn't, and Rax goes down, he can play something like Purd for a really
oh,
huge number of points
Oh man, crazy. He Josh sees it, no question. I would think. Will he see
for sure.
prevail here? You could see that last letter. It's slightly cut off on the rack though. But we saw it was a P. So a play of racks here for Jason, and it does not block. I would be stunned to see a miss of prevail here
Yeah.
for Josh, and that's going to be a huge swing. Jason's been controlling this game more or less since incisors for sure, but you can see here it comes. Prevail. I mean, will this be a self-descriptive word
Like,
for Josh? You help
it
him
may just
prevail
be
in this game.
as Jay, but I don't know,
Oh,
Jason. What are you seeing, Will?
I don't know, but it's I was just reacting to the fact that I was merely reacting to the L in the triple lane combining with all of these nice other letters. This is
But he
brutal for
has stuff.
Jason. He has stuff, but he's going to. If I'm in Jason's shoes right now, I wish that I had so much of that time back on my clock that I simply don't
Hmm.
have now, because now you've got this massive L in the triple lane where
Yep.
you're clearly going to be looking for an 8-letter word with an L as the fourth letter, and there isn't any. But in Jason's shoes, I would want to spend a long time looking, and he doesn't have that time.
100%.
So this is a gut
And
check situation here for sure.
I mean, look, he's very likely to find one of the couple of bingos that does play. But yeah, I mean, for Jason, he's like a triple triple obviously can completely change the game, as you know, Will.
It's a
Where
huge difference here too, based on the scoreboard, right, Emmett? Like
yeah,
50,
like
he's
so
down 50. A bingo will score 70, but Josh can simply have an E and reparallel axe, and he'll retake
yeah,
the lead. So a
and
triple
he
triple
does.
here
And
is
actually, you can see on Josh's rack, he could play something like Veld, VELD or VELDT, and score absolutely
huge.
massively, something like 40 in that spot. So even after Jason bingos, Josh is like going to go up back by 20 or 30 immediately.
Yeah, all
Um,
of which to say, finding that triple triple here, if you're Jason, that is of the utmost importance, and he's gonna absolutely hate to play just a 70 pointer here, but that is all that is available to him to play.
and
So,
he
I
and he
mean,
has
from
to
our
play it
POV,
fast.
yeah, from our POV, I was about to say you're so right. He's got to make that choice fast as he can.
Yeah.
Oh man, brutal, brutal. I mean, if I'm in that situation, Emmett, I'm gonna be tempted to burn almost all the rest of my time trying to look here.
Yeah. And look, yeah, Sir Fink, there are 16 tiles left unseen to Jason. Or sorry, no, there are 23 tiles left
Yeah,
unseen to Jason, 16 in
we
the
can
bag.
cut. Yeah, let's cut to the Jason POV. Oops. Yeah, so the score thing, I fixed it on the main screen. So some kind of formatting issue got introduced that I fixed it on the main stream, but we'll get that in between rounds. But yeah, so okay, so it looks like lingui or something like linguli is what Jason spelled out there. We'll see. He's man, there's that clock. I mean, that's a lot of turns. A lot of tiles are still left. There's going to be
Yeah.
several more turns in the game. Brutal. It's just brutal.
Okay.
All
So he's
right,
going to
here
come
we
down with
go.
leaguing finally.
Good choice. Very good choice to just get this. This is as good a play as any. It's only two words that fit in that spot: leaguing and lingule. And Jason has found one of those two, but
Now
he only
here is
goes up a little bit. And Emmett, like you said, Velt is just a hammer in that spot.
but we are in a really interesting position where Josh is holding on to what we call the case tease, right? Which means he has the last tease. There's no blanks. There's no S's left in the bag either. So if Josh plays that, doesn't hook the T onto Veld, he's the only one who can create that T hook onto the end of it, which
Oh,
is arguably. I'm not sure actually how valuable that is instead of leaving yourself with a better leave. But it's going to be really interesting to see what decision Josh makes here. Um,
yeah.
yeah,
That, and you can see that's a great point, Emmett. I was not thinking about it. I feel like from the way Josh has lined up his tiles, he's probably
yeah,
already spotted that possibility and is
hundred
considering just
percent.
playing Veld here without the T.
And he's going to do it.
And
Oh no,
no,
he's not going to do it. He's
he
not
does
going to do
play
it
it. Okay, so in a vacuum, it is 100% best to play Velt with the T here. No
for
question
sure.
about it. You have two Ts. Typically, duplicated tiles are something you want to avoid. And playing one of the two of them gets you a few more points. So, from that perspective, it seems clearly like a solid choice for Josh here. Of course, the rationale you just put forth was also very compelling. It would have also been worth kind of looking just to see the unseen pool
Yeah.
of if there were a lot of vowels in the pool, maybe keeping those two T's would have been a more defensible choice.
And there, I mean,
So
from Josh's
wow.
perspective, there actually were quite a bit of vowels, quite a few vowels. So I don't know. It's that's one of those really, really tough decisions, but also one of those decisions that kind of makes at least a lesser player like myself doubt their own tracking. Because in that position, if you look at your sheet and you see, oh, there's no S's, no blanks, no T's left, and then there turns out to be one, you're screwed. But Josh obviously has played at this point thousands of games, thousands of tournament games, so he's going to be pretty confident that what he has written down is correct. But that's always one of those considerations that you have to take into account.
Is Jason spelling out jabroni here? Is he going to try to fish for a word that is not in the Scrabble dictionary, but is a very
Yet,
fun word? Yet,
I believe we're
exactly.
getting jabroni in the next update, aren't we?
Is that true?
Um, I think that actually is true.
Oh
I'll see if
man,
I can check, but
we have to
um,
get. We definitely have to get NFL tight end Travis Kelsey to weigh in on that, as he famously is calling people out, or was when the NFL season was still active, calling people out left and right with that term, which of course is a classic of like WWF and stuff. But
oh, I'm
anyway,
sorry, I mixed it up. We're getting jamoke, not jabroni, which are you know,
really?
um, yeah, we're getting jamoke,
Oh, how?
Jamoke.
Oh,
It's
that is
amazing.
exciting.
I'm very excited. It's
That
gonna be
is an
great.
incredible addition. I'm so glad to hear that. Oh, very interesting idea that a couple of you guys are saying as Jason's time. Oh my God, I'm getting nervous just looking at it. Should he consider playing jar through the A of prevail, setting up his other A of a jar? That's kind of an
Interesting.
intriguing idea.
It's another one of
Um,
those positions where you're holding on to the last of a certain tile, and you really have final say into what goes down with that tile.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. I don't mind that idea here. But again, I just think the time element, we said it in the previous game between Jackson Smiley and Michael Fagan that Jackson is very, very good at blitz Scrabble. Oh, and is he going
ah,
for jobber or something? Is that even
interesting. That's
that
really
is a
interesting.
word. He's going for jobber. Very nice. So Karn going for one of those E's. There's several of them, in fact. And if he's able to draw one, and has he gotten? He did at the very end, the
Wow,
last letter. So he's
that's
threatening a
huge.
pretty big play there. I feel like Josh is definitely going to sniff that out, though. So we'll see. But it's not actually super easy to play to that B.
No, it really isn't.
So that's
Gosh,
it's a great play under oh, he does have Henbit. He has Henbit if Josh wants to play
that'd be
there, which
nasty.
that would
Or
be a
maybe
tremendous play by him.
for a slightly
Oh,
easier play, he also has Thebe, just
Steve, yeah,
Thebe through that
okay,
B.
yeah.
Um,
So there's
yeah,
stuff.
and
There's stuff that he can spot there, but really nice play under pressure
yeah.
by Jason to give himself some chances. So
But Jason is, I mean, he's so low on time. It's really going to be a vast struggle for him to not go over this game. So
wow.
Josh is
Josh.
certainly in the driver's seat.
So there is one tile in the bag now. I'm not sure if we have that scene set up. If we want to cut to the Josh POV, looks perfect. Okay, so you can see. Oh, hold on. Is that right?
That's not, that's actually not right.
Yeah, stand by. It's going to be right in just a second. It's going to
I
update
can post, I'll post in the
momentarily.
chat too.
Oh, it's good
Okay,
now.
no, we're good. Beautiful.
So there you go. So that's the situation for Josh. He's definitely considering what could Jason do to me with that J. That is the threat here. I don't think there's really any bingos that he has to worry about with this kind of weird pool that just has the J and the B in it. So definitely think, and it looks to me like Josh has now lined up Henbit on his rack, right, with that HENIT. Very,
Yeah.
very impressive stuff if he ends up going ahead with this, blocking Jason's good J play, and almost certainly drawing himself outplays with that flexible PE combination that he would be leaving. on the rack there. So it looks like Josh is very close to wrapping this thing up.
Yeah. And look, both players have played a great game. It's oh, beautiful. He plays it. That is just that's just incredible. Um,
Great
so
play. That
Henbit,
is,
yeah, it's really nice. It's as we said, we were talking about it earlier. That's the best equity play in the position. Not that you're really thinking about your leave equity too much at this point in the game. Just thinking about how you can go out. But yeah, Jason's kind of in a world of hurt right now. But Jabiru is very nice, and somebody in the chat pointed that out, and that's just what he needed to play quickly.
yeah, Jabiru
Um,
going down immediately. So hold on a second. That's
and
gonna
Josh
be,
goes out.
yeah, I think, just see if the score is right. What was Josh's last letter? An E?
Yeah, he had EEP. That's right.
All right, gotcha. So, okay. So let me just see
I've got
our
415 to 384.
yeah, I'm gonna update that right now. I think 415 to 384. Okay, because we had um our scorekeeper left our call. So we just got to make sure the score is right. So I have that up for you guys there. All right.
Yeah,
Wow, very impressive stuff
impressive
from
game.
Josh. Yeah, this was very impressive here. Jason had pretty good control of the game for a while. I loved a lot of Josh's play. I loved a lot of the plays from both players
From
here.
both of them. Yeah,
Uh, and Jason, if I'm Jason, the first thing I'm going to do is to turn my phone on, go
yep,
to my word checking app, something like that, and see, did I miss a triple triple with leaguing, because that is like the key situation for Jason, and he's going to get the good news and discover that no, you didn't miss anything. That was the best that he
yeah,
had available there. So that's reassuring. But of course, a tough one for Jason, and a great win for Josh. I think this game
really
showed
nice.
that this showed off a lot of what makes Josh such a dangerous and skilled opponent. Just
Yep,
really, really strong. He had all of his options spotted so well. Just a
yeah.
lot of interesting choices by him. I'm very impressed